I'm Logan Crawford, and right now on Spotlight, I have a question for you. What is your lament? Is it the one that got away, or perhaps it was the one who stayed? Our next
The
guest,
Lament.
Ercell Hoffman, has composed a wonderful book that is a sensuous exploration of love in all its glory. It's called The Lament, selected poems and prose by Ercell Hoffman. We're delighted to have Ercell here today in the spotlight. We'd like to thank the team at Good River Print and Media for helping us put Ercell in the spotlight today. And we'd like to ask those watching to please support writers like her by subscribing to our channel. Ercell, thank you so much for joining me.
Well, thank you for having me, Logan.
This is such a beautiful book of poetry and prose that explores every aspect of love. Is this something that was decades in the making? Tell me a little bit about the compilation of all these works.
Okay, it's a compilation that occurred over a period of years because while I was writing my novel, I turned to poetry as a relief, as a quick relief, because I could write a poem in no time at all, whereas it took years to write a novel,
Exactly.
So I would just turn away from the novel writing and write poetry and then get back to the novel. It was back and forth all the time, So, yeah. So
this was a little bit of an outlet for you, a little change of pace, creative energy still, putting your heart into it still, but quicker works where you could get the payoff a little bit quicker emotionally, I mean.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Yes.
Now, is there a poem in there that's your favorite?
Well, I
it's like
don't
being
know.
asked which is your favorite child, right? It's a tough question to ask.
Right, something like that. Well, I like the one that talks about, let's see, shine on, bright souls of undauntless courage, for in the light you see those have fallen along the side in rivers swollen with grief, and seeing light gives hope to weaklings who've fallen like me. I like that one. I can't remember exactly how it starts, but yeah,
right.
It's about how seeing progress in others gives hope to those who are stuck, in a sense. So, as I felt stuck in the job at the airplane factory, and so that poem really stands out for me.
Yeah.
I like the child too. My child, I don't know if you recall that one, but my child, how you asked me how you got here. Let's see, you were born of desire and lived on longings, or something like that.
Yeah, it's tough to recall, but your work is beautiful, that's for sure. Why did you name the book The Lament?
Because it was, to me, a mournful kind of thing, where it was sorrowful, that that I could not be as I wanted to be, So the lament was something like, my niece asked me, what did I mean by that the other day? And I told her that it was meant to be something that was sorrowful, expressed a sense of longing and things of that nature. That's why I named it The Lament, because all the poems are kind of like that.
Do you think most of love is felt when it's longing rather than when it's realized?
I think that the poet is actually able to talk about the longing, and when it actually happens, the longing disappears, so yeah.
It's almost like a TV show. The characters can be in love, but they never meet. But when they finally get together, it's the end of the show, right?
You're right, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
that's wonderful. So how long have you been writing? Tell me a little bit about your writing career.
Okay, well, see, I thought I had a nervous breakdown in 1964, I think it was. And when I was hospitalized, I thought that I was already a famous writer. Hadn't written a word, but I thought I was famous. So, but anyways, after being released from the hospital, I did start to write first. It was some kind of correspondence course that I took. And so I would write and send it in, and they would critique it and send it back to me. And later on, I went back to, before I went back to college, I was living in Signal Hill with my 3 children. And I had a letter from UCLA about their extension course and a seminar that was being held. And I went to the seminar, and there were a number of speakers on the panel. And one of the speakers there was Robert Kirsch. He was then the critic at LA Times. And what he asked for during that meeting was he wanted to form a writing class, and he wanted to get a sample of writings to determine who he would have in his class. And he did it on he didn't want to know who wrote the story, so that he wouldn't be influenced by somebody he might have known. So we had to write it. I forget exactly how it was, but I wrote a story named, a short story called The Apartment. And I was selected to be in one of his writing classes. So novel writing class. So I forget how long it lasted, but it was enough to get an idea of how to put together a novel. So we were given assignments to write, sit down and just write for a certain number of hours, and just see what came out. And so we did that, and we had other assignments too, to eat food and regurgitate and swallow it again. I don't know what that was about, but we had to do that. And after that program ended, it occurred to me that I would write a novel. So I started, my first one was The Acknowledgement. So, and I wrote that novel. And after that one, I started to write another one. And, but before then, I was working at McDonnell Douglas. It was called Douglas Aircraft at that time. And I was on a leave of absence, and I felt really, really isolated. So I was reading the Press Telegram one day, and there was a story about a meeting of writers that was taking place at a place called the Douglas House Foundation. So I went there, and a group of us, I took some of my stuff to read, and poetry at that time. And what happened was someone from Hallmark Cards came, a talent scout looking for talent. And I was selected to write poetry for Hallmark Cards by assignments. So I wrote poetry for Hallmark Cards for, I guess, 2 or 3 years, something like that. And then they wanted me to become, a full-time writer for them. And the assignments that they gave me was just, to me, I just couldn't. It was so much at one time. I don't write like that,
Yeah.
So, and I just thought, no, I can't do this. But before then, they had paid me to not only write completed poetry, but they paid me to write ideas. So I would give them ideas on something, and it was after then that they wanted to hire me. So, but like I say, I didn't want to do that because I didn't want to spend that much time writing poetry.
Yeah.
So I walked away from that, but I continued to write, and so my poetry was some of my poetry was selected to be included in anthologies, a number of anthologies that were published, and then after then, well, I decided to write another novel, and what I wanted to do then was to capture through my character Kathira, what was happening at the workplace. So, and it was like I was an observer of myself. You know, it was I who was doing it, but I was observing. I was like an observer, you know, and
Right.
I just wrote those things that impressed me most of what was going on. And a lot of it had to do with discrimination in the workplace. And it was how I was able to endure it, you know, by writing about it. So, so there came the USA Anytime, Any Place, because my thoughts were that what was happening to me there was probably happening to other people throughout the United States, you know. So
Right.
that's how I got the title USA Anytime, Any Place, because it was really quite an experience that I had to endure. And really, I left McDonnell Douglas because the night before I went to sleep that night, I had every intentions of going back to work the next morning. But when I woke up, I couldn't go. I couldn't go. I just simply couldn't go. And that was my last day at McDonnell Douglas. You know, that was really frightening because I didn't know what on earth I would do, you know.
Right.
So I started writing articles, and let's see, quite a number of them were published, but nothing nearly enough to support myself. So
Right.
I thought, well, what am I going to do now? So how am I going to support myself? So my children then were, I think they were up and gone by then. So it was just myself here. And so I got the catalog at Cal State Dominguez. But by then I had finished an undergraduate degree in journalism at Cal State Long Beach, and had completed a master's program in public administration. So, but I couldn't, after that, I couldn't find a job anywhere. So I tried over and over and over, but nothing happened for me. So it was then that I decided, well, what am I going to do? So I got a catalog from Cal State Dominguez and looked down what was offered there, and I decided upon getting a master's degree in education with an emphasis on counseling. And that program went well, but at the very end of it, when I started the part in counseling, what occurred to me then was when we were doing peer counseling, I thought, oh, that's what I'll do. I'll become a therapist, you know, because it took me back to the time when I was in the hospital and I was in group therapy. And I thought, well, that's something that maybe I could do, you know. So I finished the degree. That program was geared toward counseling at school, you know, in a school district, but I knew I didn't want to work exclusively with children. So I wanted to work with the general population. So I went to Pepperdine University and I got a degree in clinical psychology. And to become a licensed therapist. And what I went through then, there's another book, what I went through in the process of becoming a therapist, because, well, let's see, after graduation, we had to do 3,000 internship hours. And so when my hours were completed, I was ready to take the written test. And just before I took the test, the board upped the passing rate to about 4 or 5 points, something like that. And so when I took the test, had it been the same level that it had always been, I would have passed. And I just barely missed the passing point for the up level. But apparently there was so much anger among students who, had to do something different than everybody else did, that the board went back to the original passing score. So now it seems like since they went back, they would have granted me my license, but they didn't. I had to take the test again. So when I went to, this was the first time that I went to take the test, they told me that I had to put my belongings in a room. And I went into this room and there was someone dressed like a policeman. And he said, "Purse against the wall." Oh my God, I shook up. I was so shaken, Yeah. And I said, "What did you mean?" He said, "I said purse against the wall." So I put my purse against the wall, but I was so shaken. I was so shaken by this experience, that I was able to take the test again and passed it that time. So, my goodness. So after I passed the written test, okay, then there was an oral exam that we had to pass. So I took the oral exam and I felt totally prepared to answer every question. That's how I felt, felt that I was prepared. But they gave me a failure, I said, wow, isn't it so? That was the first time I ever received a failure,
Yeah.
And so I took it again. And again, I got a failure. So I thought, my goodness, I'm going to go to Sacramento to see, what am I doing? What should I be doing? Why am I failing these things? So I went to Sacramento, and you're only allowed you're not allowed to take anything with you. You can't take notes or anything. So I went and I listened to the tape, and what I heard broke my heart. Oh my God, it just shattered me. What they had done was altered the tape. Because you see, I had a degree in journalism, and as a student, I had to go into the field and record things and go back to the editing room and edit it. So you had to make cuts, and I could hear exactly where the cuts were made, and put back together. So they had been fixing the tape to fit their failure ratings that they were giving me. Oh my God, this was the worst, because I really had thought that I was so, what do you call it? I thought that one of the reasons that people were treating me the way they were was because I didn't have a formal education, And my God, to see that these people who were educated were doing this, So really, I tried to sue them, So I got an attorney, and really I felt betrayed by her, because I didn't think she was really doing the job. So I took it on myself. I took it on myself. So I was in the law library all the time, trying to learn how to present briefs and all that kind of thing, And so anyway, I got to the point where the next step would have been an appeal, but I said, no, forget that. I'm not going to do that. But all the time I kept sitting for the exam. So then I decided that, well, it looks like I'm not going to do that. So what am I going to do now? So I thought, well, I'll become a parenting instructor because I had done many of my hours as outreach home therapy. What was it called? Outreach counseling, something like that, where, you go into the home and help people who were having trouble with drug addiction, or the children had been removed from them, something like that. And so then I thought, well, maybe I could become a parenting instructor and go to those agencies and provide parenting to the parents who needed parenting therapy. Parenting training, I should say. And so the next time the board sent me the date to take the test, it ended up being on the same day that I were to take the final exam as a parenting instructor, So to complete the training, I forget the name of the program right now, but I completed that program and I was a certified parenting instructor. So the next exam, I went on and took the exam knowing what the results I thought would be. But then when I got the results in mail, I saw a congratulation note, So I had passed the exam, but I felt nothing. I felt nothing inside. I really didn't. But anyway, as a result of that, I thought, well, I was working at a place called, what was it? Coalition of Professionals, something. I have it written down somewhere, but I had been working there. And after I got my license, well, there was no change in salary, So I thought, now what am I going to do? So I started pounding the streets looking for some place maybe where I could rent an office or something like that, And then it occurred to me, well, why not build an office attached to your home, So I did that. I got a constructor out here, construction company here, and they built, I designed what I wanted, the therapy room, the waiting room, and a bathroom. So when that was completed, I started doing therapy. And before then, what happened to me when I was working, the Coalition of Mental Health Professionals, that was it. I was working at the Coalition of Mental Health Professionals. So it was there that I got the idea to build my office, and something occurred to me: if you build it, they will come. So I banked on that, and sure enough, when I built my office, patients began to come. So so I've been doing that now for almost 20 years. So what I did after I started doing therapy was I started to try to promote my books, the ones that I had written. By then I had written 4, and I started to promote them. And I tell you, I've been caught up in so many scams. I tell you, oh my goodness, I'm just now getting out of one because this person said that he was connected, he or she, I never met them in person, was connected with Penguin Random House, and they wanted to acquire two of my books, The Lament and USA Anytime, Any Place.
Mm.
So, anyways, I was convinced that this guy was real.
Right.
And so, I mean, I used my credit cards to, do this and that, take out ads for Publishers Weekly. And then, I mean, a lot of other things too. And then I finally contacted Penguin Random House, and they told me that they knew nothing. Sarah Jaffe was a person that this person said he was working with. And I never talked to her. I mean, as far as I know, one time he said he connected me with her and I spoke to somebody, but I don't know. It could have been anybody, you know.
Right.
So, so then when I called Penguin Random House, they told me that they had written a letter to this person to cease and desist, you know. And I tell you, this person was so convincing. He was, or she was so convincing. He led me to believe that no, he had not gotten such a letter. No way he had not gotten that letter. Right. And that they couldn't discuss what was going on until the contract was signed. So anyway, by this time I'm way in debt, you know, with right. credit cards, you know. So and right now I'm in the process of getting that straightened out because I had all those charges pulled back, you know, that I had placed in for this. And so this is where I am now. I'm in the process now of publishing my own books under my own name, you
Great.
know. So
well, we're glad you did. This book is just fantastic. Like I said, it's a great exploration of love and life through poetry and prose rather. So we're so glad that you did. Do you have another work coming up? Are you working on anything else right now?
You know, I don't have time now because I'm so involved in seeing so many clients and so many notes I have to write and people I have to interact with because I'm contracting with a number of agencies.
Right.
Los Angeles County Department of Mental Health, Kaiser Foundation, Blue Shields. I'm doing EAP works, you know, people who were having trouble on their jobs and you know, their companies pay for them to have therapy on a short-term basis. Right. And sometimes after therapy, I continue with them if they have the kind of insurance that I can take. So that keeps me so busy. Oh,
yeah. Gosh. Well, hopefully you find some time to do some more writing because your book, it's called The Lament, Selected Poems and Prose. It is written by Ercell Hoffman. It is highly recommended. You will love it. Valentine's Day is coming up. This book of poems centered on love would be the perfect gift. Ercell, thank you so much for joining us here today on Spotlight. Well, thank you. I hope I covered what you were looking for. I mean, absolutely. I know I was supposed to spend... Absolutely. It was very interesting mosaic of your life, and we appreciate your time, your honesty, and your insight. And to the folks at home, I'm Logan Crawford, thanking you for your time, this time, until next time on Spotlight.